Hey guys, tonight we're drifting back to feudal Japan, where the wind rustles gently through the pine trees, temple bells echo faintly in the distance, and a lone samurai stands beneath the sliver of a crescent moon, sharpening his blade beneath a paper lantern's warm glow. His hands are calloused. His armor smells faintly of sweat and lacquer, and though there's a perfectly good bathhouse nearby, steam-rising attendants ready, he's not going anywhere near it. Why? 'Cause tomorrow morning, he may die. And getting clean, that's for those who don't expect to leave blood behind on the floor. You probably wouldn't survive this. Not the armor, not the silence, not the calm decision to die with honor, if it comes to that. But tonight, you don't have to fight. You just have to lie back and let the story of Japan's strangest martial superstitions lull you to sleep. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is as you wind down tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 1685, and you're a retainer for a small provincial lord in the shadowy forests outside Kyoto. You've spent your life under the code of Bushido duty, loyalty, honor unto death, and today your master has summoned you to face another samurai in a matter of justice. The reasons are fuzzy, something about a slight, a rumor, a question of face. The outcome is certain, one of you will fall. And though there's a bathhouse just beyond the courtyard past the koi pond and the shoji gate, you step right past it. Not even a glance. Because in the whispered culture of the warrior class, bathing before a duel was seen by some as unlucky, tempting fate. To cleanse yourself before battle was to assume you'd be around afterward to enjoy it. To wash your body was to invite shame if your bowels loosened in death. And worse, it was said among old swordsmen that warm skin made the blade's entry smoother. A freshly bathed body relaxed and soft was easier to kill. So you stay dirty. You keep the old sweat from yesterday's training. You keep the armor slick, the chest plate grimy, and the tang of iron under your fingernails. Maybe the gods will see your readiness to meet death, and maybe, just maybe, they'll pass over you. In the candlelight of your quarters, you sit seiza on the floor and lay out your swords before you. The katana polished and gleaming. The wakizashi shorter, more personal. You sharpen the edges with methodical care, each stroke slow and circular. The only sound in the room is the whisper of steel on stone and the occasional creak of the floor as you shift weight. The air is heavy with incense. You've lit a single stick from your family shrine. Its smoke trails upward toward the cracked ceiling, curling in lazy spirals. Beneath your layered robes, your heart beats slow but strong. You are ready. You are steady. But you do not wash. Outside, the snow has begun to fall, lightly soft white petals against the black sky. You hear the garden gate creak open as a servant steps inside, kneels behind you, and announces the hour of the duel. You bow once, he bows lower, and then you sit for another full hour in silence. Because for a samurai, the battle starts not with the drawing of the sword, but with stillness, with the meditation before action, with the refusal to rush. To bathe now would not only dishonor that process, it would clutter the mind. The mind must be sharp. The body must be grim. The soul must already have said goodbye. Your father used to tell you stories of warriors who bathed before their deaths, and it never ended well. One was decapitated in a robe. Another slipped stepping out of a hot spring and never made it to the field. There's even a rumor of a general who died with his hair still wet, shamed before all. So you keep your grime like armor. When the hour arrives, you rise and move with deliberate weight. Each step across the tatami is a farewell. You bow low to the kamadana, the miniature shrine at the head of your chamber, and you leave your quarters as if you will never return. You do not look back. At the dueling grounds, a flat circle of earth ringed by bamboo poles and silent observers, you stand opposite your challenger. He too has skipped the bath. You can smell the salt on his skin, the raw edge of old sweat. He bows once. You bow lower. And then the wind stills. You both wait. The match is not decided by strength. It is decided by timing, breath, stillness. You wait for a twitch of muscle, a flicker in his gaze, the millisecond of doubt that will let you strike first. And then it's done. You do not fall. But you do not cheer either. You sheathe your sword slowly, bow once more, and walk away. You do not bathe now either. Not yet. Not tonight. Because even though you live, it's not over. Others may come. More duels. More death. And every time the scent of your body may help you survive just a little longer. No one writes about that in the scrolls. But the older warriors whisper it to each other that cleanliness is a kind of vanity, and that in the shadow of death, vanity will get you killed. You walk back into the dusk with blood on your sleeves and your soul intact. You do not wash. Not yet. You don't sleep much that night. The floor is hard. The air is cold. And even though your opponent's blood has dried on your sleeve, crusting along the embroidered edge of your kimono, you don't dare change clothes. Not yet. You lie awake on the tatami mat, the faint rustle of bamboo outside like whispers from ghosts. Every sound, the drip of water, the creak of beams overhead, keeps you in a shallow state between rest and readiness. This is the aftermath of a duel. You've survived, but it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like suspension, like you've been placed on a thin ledge above a chasm, and the next misstep could send you plunging into nothingness. You could be summoned again tomorrow, or next week. And once again, you'll refuse the bath. Because that bath, however warm, however soothing, would mean admitting you believe the danger has passed. And in the way of the warrior, danger never truly passes. At sunrise, you rise without being summoned. Your legs ache. The soles of your feet are sore. There's dirt under your nails, blood beneath the hem of your hakama. A servant arrives with a tray of rice, pickled radish, and miso, but says nothing as she bows and backs away. Her silence is respectful, but also wary. No one speaks to a man who's killed before the spirits have cleared. You eat slowly, chewing each grain of rice with care. Not because you're hungry, but because chewing helps anchor you in the moment. Your jaw works. Your hands tremble slightly. Not from fear, from tension stored in the sinews overnight. After the meal, you step outside and walk the length of the compound garden. Here the world is orderly. The sand in the Zen rock garden has been freshly raked. The koi swim in lazy arcs beneath the pond's thin layer of ice. A bird chirps once, then falls silent again. You pause beside a pine tree where incense offerings have been left for your opponent. His name is carved into a strip of thin wood, propped in the soil like a tiny gravestone. You bow once, deep, longer than necessary. You do not know his story, only that it intersected with yours and ended. And now you must carry that weight. You return to the main hall. Your master is waiting. He sits with perfect posture on the raised dais, a lacquered fan resting in his lap. His gaze is unreadable. He speaks only a sentence: you served with honor. then silence. There is no praise, no reward, no ceremony, only the unspoken expectation that you return to your duties. And you do. That afternoon, you drill the younger men. You teach them stances, posture, footwork. You correct their sloppy strikes and weak balance. You watch their faces, some eager, some fearful, and you remember that once, not long ago, you were one of them. They ask why you're still in your blood-stained robes. You don't answer. They don't ask twice. Later in the stillness of evening, another servant approaches. This time he kneels and informs you that a high-ranking guest will arrive tomorrow, a daimyo's cousin. You are to be on guard, formal, presentable, and that word, presentable, finally breaks the spell. You take your first bath in 3 days. The water is scalding, drawn from the heated spring behind the compound. As you ease yourself in, you can feel the grime dissolve from your skin. The dried blood peels away from your sleeves. The tension in your back begins to melt. But something inside you resists. The warmth, the comfort, it all feels too soon, too indulgent. The old teachings ring in your mind: never lower your guard, never grow soft, never believe you are safe. You splash water over your face, but do not linger. You scrub quickly with calloused hands and dress again without fanfare. You wear clean robes, but your heart still beats like it did in the dueling ring, slow, precise, cautious. That night, you light incense not for victory, but for vigilance. The room smells of cedar and ash. You kneel before the Kamadana again and offer a silent vow not of peace but of preparedness, because now you know something that most do not. Bathing when done at the wrong time is not cleansing, it is surrender. And in a world where death walks softly in silk slippers, surrender doesn't always look like dropping your sword. Sometimes it looks like sinking too deeply into warm water and forgetting that someone somewhere might still be sharpening a blade with your name in mind. You sleep finally, but only after placing your sword within arm's reach. And even then, your dreams are filled with steam silence and the soft rustle of footsteps behind a paper screen. You turn, but no one is there. Only the faint scent of cherry blossoms and old dried blood. Morning breaks with a sharp wind off the mountain. You feel it as soon as you slide open the paper door of your quarters. It cuts through your robes, stirs the loose strands of your hair, and carries with it the faint scent of snow. The first frost of the season has crept across the courtyard stones, and the koi pond is now rimmed with delicate white lace. You stretch your limbs, slowly rolling your shoulders to shake out the stiffness. Every muscle reminds you that you are alive, but only barely. Not just in the physical sense, but in that deeper, more tenuous way that warriors understand. You are alive not because of skill or strength, but because you were not chosen to die. Not yet. The compound is unusually quiet. The usual bustle of servants, the distant echo of wooden sandals on stone, even the chirping of sparrows, it's all muffled by the cold. Today is the day of the guest's arrival. The daimyo's cousin, a man you've never met, but have heard about through sideways glances and lowered voices. He is said to be curious about the samurai arts. He is said to carry secrets in his sleeves. You tighten your obi and make your way to the training yard. Already the junior warriors are assembled. They line up in straight rows, backs rigid, eyes forward. Their breath comes out in puffs, visible in the morning chill. You walk past them in silence, inspecting posture, noting trembling knees and shifting feet. You can smell nervousness before you even reach the front line. They've heard the rumors that you fought, that you won, that you didn't bathe until yesterday. Some see it as discipline, others as superstition, but no one dares ask. One young man flinches as you step near. You stop beside him. He holds your gaze with difficulty. You speak quietly. "You washed this morning." He nods, hesitates. "Yes, senpai." You raise a brow, expecting a duel. His eyes widen. "No, senpai." Then you're already too soft. You don't need to explain. The lesson lands even if it isn't fair. That's the way of it. In this world, perception is armor. Cleanliness can be seen as arrogance, and there's no greater danger than entering combat thinking you're immune to it. You step back and watch as they run drills. Slashes, parries, footwork, all of it practiced mechanical. But you see it in their movements. Hesitation. Overthinking. The young are always torn between fear and pride. They want to be great, but not dead. They want to be noticed, but not targeted. You, on the other hand, have stopped wanting much of anything. Wanting leads to mistakes. By midday, the guest arrives. His retinue is small but elegant. No soldiers, only attendants in patterned robes and a palanquin so quiet it barely rustles the gravel. When the cousin emerges, he is younger than expected. Polished, smiling. His robes are flawless. His hair is combed to perfection. And yes, he smells freshly bathed. You bow as custom demands. He returns it, but with a subtle delay, as if waiting to see how low you'll go. He requests a demonstration. Not a mock duel, but a real exhibition of readiness, of reflex. He wants to see what separates trained warriors from those who only pretend. Your master nods and gestures toward you. You stand alone in the center of the ring. The cousin sits beneath a covered pavilion sipping tea, his chin resting lightly in one hand. He watches as you remove your outer robe, revealing the simpler jai beneath. You unsheathe your blade in a slow, deliberate motion, letting the sunlight catch along its edge. Then, you wait. There is no partner, only you. A series of movements, imagined opponents. You begin with stillness, then explode into motion, cutting the air, stepping, turning, slicing again. The crowd is silent. Even the birds seem to hush. You don't rush. Every movement is controlled. Precision over speed. Efficiency over flair. When you finally stop, there is no applause. Only the soft clink of your sword sliding back into its saya. The cousin smiles. "Interesting," he says to no one in particular. Then he leans slightly forward. "And tell me, swordsman, do you bathe before or after you kill?" The question slices deeper than any blade. You bow slightly. "After." He nods. "Good." Blood is difficult to remove from clean skin. And just like that, you realize he knows. Maybe not the details. Maybe not the name of the man you cut down. But he knows the truth of things. The ugly rhythm of survival. The quiet rituals of those who expect to die, and the vanity of those who don't. That night, you sit again in silence. No incense, no prayers. Just you and your sword, and the slow, steady breath of a man who has learned one lesson too many. The world is drawn between those who clean themselves for appearances, and those who stay dirty because they expect the worst. The snow comes heavier that night. It starts as a light flurry against the lantern glow, but by midnight, the rooftops vanish beneath a thick white blanket, and the branches of the pine trees bend low, heavy with silence. You sit in your chamber with the paper doors cracked open, just enough to let in the cold. It keeps you alert, keeps your breath visible, keeps your memories sharp. You polish your blade with a cloth made from your old training robes, cloth worn thin by years of sweat and dirt and effort. There's comfort in the repetition. Down the blade, back up, down again. You don't count strokes anymore. You just wait until the edge reflects you clearly enough that it almost looks like someone else is staring back. There's a knock at the frame. Not a servant's knock, a warrior's knock. You slide open the door and find Okabe, one of your oldest comrades, standing in the snow. He's bundled in a cloak, his nose red from the cold, his expression tense. There's going to be a duel, he says simply. You don't ask who. You already know it isn't yours. At least not yet. You nod and step aside. He kneels before your small table, shaking snow from his sleeves. You pour him tea, and for a moment, the room is quiet except for the soft bubbling of the kettle. Then he speaks again. They're sending Nakamura. He's not ready. You say nothing. Nakamura is young, too eager. His sword is fast, but his thoughts are slower. He bathes every morning, wears perfume, styles his hair. The kind of man who hasn't yet faced a real edge, not one that bites back. He thinks it's a formality, Okabe mutters. Thinks he'll win by presence alone. You sip your tea and let the steam rise into your face. Then he's already halfway to the next world. Okabe nods grimly. There's a superstition that spreads like fungus through the lower ranks that duels are decided before they begin. Not by skill, but by spirit. And that the scent of bathwater, of oils and fresh linens is like a flag to the gods. A signal that this man believes he's walking away. The gods don't like confidence. You remember a man once, years ago, who strode into a duel with fresh rosewater behind his ears. A noble's son. He didn't last 3 breaths. His body folded before his brain even understood what had happened. You remember the way his robes fluttered in the wind, still damp with steam from the bathhouse. You return your gaze to Okabe. Talk him out of it. He laughed. You both sit with that for a while. Outside, the snow thickens. Somewhere across the compound, you know Nakamura is probably combing his hair or sharpening a blade he doesn't fully understand. You want to pity him, but pity is dangerous. Pity makes the hand tremble at the wrong moment. Let him walk his path, you finally say. Okabe rises. He'll die. Maybe. Maybe not. You don't say the rest, that sometimes it's the lesson itself that needs a grave. The next morning, the duel is quiet. Few attend. The snow muffles everything, steps, whispers, even the moment Nakamura falls to his knees, clutching his side with both hands, eyes wide in disbelief. The cut was clean. The wound deep. His opponent was older, calmer. The blade slipped in like it knew exactly where it was going. You stand far back, arms crossed, watching through the curtain of snowfall. Okabe is beside you. He still had soap behind his ears, he mutters. You nod. Then it wasn't the sword that killed him. You wait until Nakamura is carried away before you step into the ring, not to fight, but to stand. To feel the snow on your face. To breathe in the cold. To remind yourself what this life is made of. Not rituals, not silk robes, just the cold steel of expectation. Back in your room, you light no fire. The chill is part of it now. A reminder, a warning. Your robe still smells faintly of iron and pine, and when a servant timidly asks if you want the bathhouse prepared, you answer with a simple quiet. Because until the blade is sheathed for good, the war isn't over, and a warm body is a target. The days stretch long after Nakamura's death. Snow continues to fall, burying the footpaths in white silence, and with each layer the compound grows quieter, as though the world is trying to hush itself into stillness. Even the koi have stopped moving, hidden deep beneath the frozen surface of the pond. And yet beneath this quiet, something heavier lingers, a sense of breath being held, like the moment before a string snaps. Nakamura's quarters remain untouched. His armor still stands propped on its frame. His sandals lie just beside the door, perfectly placed, as though he might return at any moment. No one dares move them, not out of respect, but fear. A samurai who dies, still polished and perfumed, is said to linger unsure if he's passed on. The older servants whisper it at night. You pass his room daily now. You don't look in, but you feel it. The stillness, the warning. Inside your own quarters, the air is colder than usual. The paper screens rattle against the wind, and the candle flame tilts constantly, as if uncertain whether to keep burning. You've stopped warming your meals. Cold rice, cold tea, cold hands wrapped around a blade that never leaves your side. It's not penance, it's preparation. You've taken to rising earlier than ever before the others stir. You walk the perimeter of the compound. Alone your shadow. Long in the moonlight, your breath curling into the blue-gray dawn. Each step is deliberate, silent. A reminder that you are not owed another morning. You are only borrowing time. One day, while crossing the snow-covered path behind the stables, you hear a conversation drift across the courtyard. Two younger samurai. Whispering, he still doesn't bathe. Says it's about purity, but it's superstition, really. I heard he sleeps with his sword drawn. I heard he dreams of death. You do not correct them. Let them talk. Let them think you're half ghost already. It might buy you an extra second if they ever stand across from you in a ring. And in that second, everything can change. That evening, your master summons you. He does not ask if you are well. He does not offer tea. He simply unrolls a scroll between you and points to a name. You recognize it. A minor noble's son from another province. Young, arrogant. Too many rumors surround him, duels won by coin, not blade. Challenges issued after wine. He is visiting the region. He has slighted your clan. A message has been sent. You will answer it. You bow once and leave the room without speaking. Outside, the snowfall has stopped. The sky is clean, sharp. You do not return to your quarters. You go instead to the small shrine by the garden gate, the one your mother used to kneel before when she came to visit. You light a stick of incense and whisper nothing. Just breathe. Just listen to the way the flame crackles as it devours the tip of the stick. It smells of cedar and ash and something older, something buried in the soil of your childhood. Then, without ceremony, you walk to the bathhouse. You stand at its door for a long time. Steam curls from the roof. You can hear the water lapping inside. Clean, inviting. You take a step closer, then stop. A servant appears, startled by your presence, and bows hastily. Shall I prepare the bath, honored one? You shake your head. You turn. You walk away. You sleep that night in your full training robes, your blade beside you, your hair unwashed and tied back with rough cloth. You do not dream, because your mind knows what your body now accepts. This duel may be ceremonial. It may be performative. it may not. And if the gods are watching, you will meet them dirty, unshaven, and fully prepared, because they do not respect the polished. They respect the ready. The next morning, the frost on the ground is glassy, brittle beneath your sandals. The sun has not yet crested the treetops, but the air already hums with motion. Servants rush between buildings with hot towels and polished trays. Attendants murmur to one another in clipped voices. Someone is practicing flute in the far garden, the notes thin and wandering like a thought struggling to stay formed. You don't join the others for breakfast. You don't sit by the brazier or warm your hands over coals. You kneel in the corner of your room, sword across your lap, letting your spine align itself with the rhythm of your breath. You don't count time by candles or clocks anymore. You count it in inhalations, in the way the body settles into stillness. They will come for you soon. You rise and wrap your robes tighter, layering cloth, not for warmth, but for structure, so your movements won't flap or snag. You bind your sleeves. You roll the bottoms of your hakama tight and tuck them for swift footwork. Every crease has a purpose. Every tie is intentional. There's a knock at your door. You answer without a word. A servant bows deeply and offers a bundle your mask. Ceremonial. Lacquered. Stark white with black trim, and it hides nothing but expression, yet somehow makes every duel feel like a meeting between spirits rather than men. You take it and place it inside your sleeve. You won't wear it until you step into the ring. Outside, the courtyard is slick with frost, each stone carefully cleared of snow. Banners hang limp along the walkways. The air smells faintly of wood smoke and salt. Someone is burning pine logs in the nearby kitchen. As you cross toward the practice yard, you see the challenger has already arrived. He's young, younger than you expected. His armor is polished to a shine. His sleeves are embroidered with gold cranes. His attendants stand a little too close, their gazes darting like birds ready to scatter. He doesn't look nervous, but that's often how the worst ones look. Eager, confident, as though they've already survived the story in their heads. He sees you approach and tilts his head in a shallow nod. You bow lower, longer, out of respect for tradition, not the man. A retainer calls for the duel to begin. There are only a dozen witnesses, enough to record the outcome, not enough to draw gossip. This is the preferred way, clean, private, and forgotten unless blood touches soil. You step into the ring. The air between you is brittle. You tie on your mask. He does not. He smiles. You draw your blade. So does he. The ring is marked with simple stones 12 paces across. You position your feet with care. You've done this more times than you can count, and yet each time your body behaves like it's the first. Every heartbeat thuds through your ribs like it's trying to escape. Your mouth dries, your senses sharpen. The boy across from you shifts his weight. His blade wavers slightly, too loose. He's thinking of how he'll look when he wins. You're thinking of where his tendon meets bone. The moment stretches. A bird flutters from the rafters above and disappears into the trees. That's when you move. A single step. One breath. One strike. It's over before most of the witnesses exhale. Your blade doesn't slice him open. It shaves a line across his shoulder, through his outer robe without drawing blood. A warning. A gift. A line he'll remember when the snow melts and his pride starts to itch again. He drops his sword, not out of pain, out of surprise. The referee hesitates, then bows. The challenger is marked. The match is decided. You sheath your blade, turn away, and only when you reach the edge of the ring do you remove your mask. Behind you, the young man breathes like someone who nearly drowned. Your master waits at the gate. He nods once. Mercy is a lesson too. You say nothing. Mercy, maybe, but only for now, because next time you might not be given the choice. Back in your quarters, the same servant awaits with the same question. Shall I prepare the bath? You look at him. Not unkindly. No. You place the mask back into its cloth wrapping. You light no incense. You simply sit and let the silence settle around you once more. Because mercy is fleeting, but readiness is ritual. That night you lie awake again, not restless, not afraid, but aware. Awareness is the closest thing to sleep that a warrior like you earns. The kind of stillness that doesn't dull your senses, but sharpens them under the weight of quiet. You listen to the wind tapping against the wooden slats of your room. You count the cracks in the ceiling beams. You keep one hand lightly resting on the saya of your blade. The young noble you spared won't forget you. That's not ego, it's certainty. He'll remember the sound of your step, the cold calm in your movement, the way the world seemed to pause just before your blade kissed his shoulder. He'll remember that it wasn't strength that beat him. It was presence, intention, and perhaps in time that will shape him, or perhaps it will rot in him like shame. You've seen that happen before. The spared don't always walk away grateful. Sometimes they come back with a grudge. In the morning, the compound breathes again, slowly. The young samurai nod to you more quickly now, more formally. Not out of respect, but because your silence unnerves them. They smile too broadly, bow too low, as if hoping their performance will make them immune to your attention. You let them guess. The bathhouse is still offered each day, of course. You pass it on your walk to the training yard, steam curling from the rooftop like a dragon's breath. You catch the scent of cedar fresh linen, a hint of rose. Softness, the kind that dulls the edge. Instead, you find the forest path behind the shrine, the one barely anyone uses. It winds up the hillside past gnarled trees and ancient stones where moss grows thick and undisturbed. You walk it alone, your footsteps muffled by the wet leaves. The cold air nips at your face, but the motion keeps your blood warm. Halfway up the path, there's a clearing. A flat stone ringed by bamboo with a view of the valley. This is where you practice now. Not for others, not for ceremony. Just for you. Here your blade sings the way it's meant to through empty air, against imagined foes, in time with your breath. You move not to show skill, but to remember it. Not to impress, but to survive. One cut, step, turn, breathe. The ritual is not performance, it's insurance. You lose track of time as always. But eventually the wind shifts and you sense you are no longer alone. Turning slowly, you find a child at the edge of the clearing. A boy, maybe 10. He wears 2 big robes and a curious expression. No fear, just fascination. He bows clumsily. You nod once. You're the one who beat the gold-shoulder samurai, he says. You raise a brow. That's what they call him now, the boy shrugs. I heard he cried after. You say nothing. Let the words hang. Can I watch you return to your stance? Only if you stay silent. He nods and sits cross-legged on the moss. And so you begin again. But now your movements feel different. Weighted. Watched. The presence of someone innocent somehow brings the cost of each gesture into sharper focus. The lines you draw in the air aren't just theory, they're potential. Each step is a memory of someone else who did not step fast enough. When you finish, the boy claps once. You don't look like the others. You sheath your sword. I'm not. Why don't you take baths like the rest of them? You turn to look at him fully for the first time. Because if I ever die in battle, I want the gods to recognize me. He tilts his head. Wouldn't they know you either way? You give a slight smile. Not if I smell like a prince. He laughs. And just like that, something soft cracks inside you just a little. Later, you walk back to the compound, and the snow begins to fall again. Flakes gather in your hair, your sleeves, your collar. You let them. You pass the bathhouse again. This time you pause, only for a second. Then you keep walking. Because while the water may be warm, clarity is cold, and you are far from done with either. You wake to a knock before sunrise. 3 quick taps, urgent but controlled, the kind of knock that doesn't wait for an answer. You're already sitting up, hand resting on the hilt of your sword, even before the door slides open. It's Okabe. He doesn't enter. He only says, "It's your turn." You don't ask who or why. You nod. He disappears. This is the rhythm of your life now. No reasons, no explanations, only names, steel and silence. You dress with practiced efficiency, layering your robe, binding your sleeves, tying your hair back in the old style. There's no time for incense, no time for tea. But you don't feel rushed. You haven't in years. You move like the tide inevitable. The challenger is from another province, a Ronin who's made his name picking fights in border towns and gambling halls. Word is he's skilled. Word is he doesn't fight clean. Word is he bathes before every duel. You meet him in the lower ring, a smaller dueling ground, behind the storage hall. It's muddy here, not stone. The snow's melted in patches, revealing earth as black as ink and slick as oil. There are no spectators, only your master and a single scribe to witness. The Ronin arrives late. His hair is oiled and combed back. His sleeves are embroidered. He smells faintly of plum and cinnamon. His sandals are spotless. He grins when he sees you. Thought they'd send someone younger, he says. You bow, he doesn't. The scribe clears his throat and announces the challenge, but neither of you truly listens. Your hands are already drifting to your hilts. Your stances are forming. Your minds are narrowing. There's no ceremony when it begins. No call to start. Only the flick of his wrist, and you meet it. He's fast, but he's too clean. His movements are flashy, theatrical, designed to impress. Yours are quiet, minimal. Every motion is a whisper, not a roar. Where he spins, you step. Where he feints, you wait. You don't fall for the rhythm he wants to set, you break it. Your blades clash twice. On the third exchange, you mark him one clean line across the ribs, shallow but bright red against the embroidery. He freezes. The scribe clears his throat again. The duel is decided. The Ronin doesn't sheath his blade. He stares at you, breathing hard. You didn't even try to kill me, he spits. You meet his eyes, voice even. You're not worth the bath I'd have to take after. His face reddens, but he doesn't strike again. Because he knows deep down it wouldn't end well. You turn your back and walk away. Your master says nothing as you pass. He doesn't need to. Back in your quarters, the servant awaits, towel in hand, bathwater already drawn. Steam curls behind him. You glance at the tub. It would feel good. The water, the heat, the cleansing. You step past it. Let it cool, you say. You lie down on the tatami armor still creaking against your shoulders, blade still at your side. The duel plays again behind your closed eyes. Not the fight itself, but the way he looked when you turned away. Confused, ashamed. That's what a real duel does. It rewrites the rules in your opponent's mind. And afterward, it rewrites them in yours. Because the sword you carry is not just iron. It's the burden of knowing what it means to touch death and step back from it. And that burden doesn't wash off. Not even with the finest bath in all of Kyoto. You sleep eventually, but only after whispering the name of the Ronin once and letting it disappear into the dark. It's 3 days before another challenge is issued. 3 days of quiet snow routine drills and steaming bowls of rice that go half-touched. You spend the time as you always do, watching, listening, moving through the halls like a shadow in the wood grain. You don't linger in crowds. You don't accept invitations to sit beside the brazier or play go with the younger men. You've become something else to them now. Not a peer. Not quite a senior. Something more like a warning. The older ones understand. They nod when you pass. They've lived long enough to recognize what you've become. Not invincible. Not lucky. Just pared down. Polished not by bathwater or oils, but by the grind of reality. It's Okabe who brings you the next name. He doesn't unroll a scroll this time. He just says the word and watches your reaction. You feel it. Not fear, but familiarity. You've heard of this one. A swordsman from the southern provinces. Not a noble. Not a ronin. But a student of the Yagyu school, one of the old ones. They don't duel for pride or performance. They duel because they believe it is the truest language the body can speak. This will not be a shallow cut across the sleeve. This will not be mercy. This will be the real thing. You nod, and Okabe exhales slightly. That tiny motion tells you everything he wasn't sure if you'd accept. And he's relieved that you did. There's no ceremony this time. No masks. No audience. Just you and the swordsman from the south. He arrives at dusk. You meet in the bamboo grove far from the ring, away from the polished courtyards and trained eyes. This place is private, sacred. If blood spills here, the trees will absorb it without judgment. He bows. You bow deeper. His robes are simple. No embroidery. No perfume. You both smell like the earth. He unsheaths his blade in a single clean motion. You mirror him. There's no need for a signal. You begin. The first minute is motionless. A study. A prayer. Then, like a bell struck in a dream, it happens. He moves. You respond. Steel glances against steel once, twice. Then separation. Reset. Again. A flurry this time. A series of cuts that test your guard, your breath, your balance. You give ground. So does he. Then the rhythm changes. You strike. He slips. You follow step by step until your blade is angled at his neck, the edge just shy of biting into the skin. He stills. You both breathe, shoulders rising and falling in unison. Then slowly, he lowers his weapon. You lower yours. No words. No declarations. Only mutual acknowledgement. He bows again. You do the same. And in that moment you understand something you hadn't until now. Some men duel not to win, but to speak to someone who understands the silence between two swords. You walk back alone, night already laid thick over the path. The moon glints on the snow like threads of silver. Your body aches not from injury, but from effort, the kind that costs something deeper than muscle. At your door, the servant is waiting. He opens his mouth to speak, but you raise a hand. "I'll take the bath," you say. And for the first time in weeks, you step inside the bathhouse. You strip slowly, ease into the water even slower. It burns at first. Then it doesn't. You sink until only your eyes remain above the surface, staring at the ceiling beams warped by years of steam and memory. The duel plays again behind your eyes, but this time it brings no tension, only calm. Because this one wasn't about survival. It was about communion. You finish without haste, dress in silence, step back into the cold, and somehow your blade feels lighter. Not because it's cleaner, but because for once you didn't have to carry death with you when you left the ring. The snow begins to melt the next day. Not fully, not enough to reveal the stone pathways completely, but enough to change the sound of footsteps, less crunch, more splash. Icicles drip steadily from the roof tiles. The garden pond softens around the edges. Spring is still a whisper, but it's coming. You can feel it in your bones in the way the chill doesn't bite quite as deep in the mornings. The compound stirs with that same restless energy. Servants sweep out winter's last breath. The younger warriors sharpen their practice with renewed urgency. There's talk of new postings, shifting alliances, small political tremors just beneath the surface of court life. Even your master seems more alert. These days he spends more time by the window, fingering his fan, watching the younger men spar with narrowed eyes. But you keep to your rhythm. Not because you resist change, but because your rhythm is what has kept you alive. You still avoid the brazier. You still skip the evening sake. You still rise before dawn and practice in the clearing where the trees remember every footfall. But something in you has shifted since the last duel. It's not softness, not peace. It's something closer to understanding. That not every edge needs to draw blood. That sometimes a duel can end with both men walking away heavier, not lighter. That sometimes a bath is not surrender, but release. Still, you decline the bath the next day. Not because you feel cursed, because you feel steady. Later that week, the boy from the forest returns. You're mid-kata when you sense him sitting cross-legged on the moss again, chewing on a sprig of grass, like it might tell him a secret. You finish your form and sheath your blade. He claps once. You move like wind through trees. You shake your head. Wind doesn't think. It just moves. He grins. Maybe that's why it wins. You sit on the edge of the stone. He scoots closer, lowering his voice. They say another duel's coming. You nod. It's always coming. They say you never lose. You stare ahead at the mountains. I don't always win. He leans in. Why don't you teach the others, the loud ones? You glance at him. They already think they know everything. Do you? You meet his gaze. There's nothing mocking in his tone. Just open curiosity. No, you say. That's why I'm still alive. He nods solemnly, as if filing that truth away for some later use. Then, without asking, he stands and mimics your form, feet, planted, arms raised, body coiled like a question mark. It's clumsy, unbalanced, but his effort is honest. You rise beside him, move slowly, adjust his feet, guide his shoulders. You say nothing, neither does he. The two of you move through the kata as the sun filters through the bamboo leaves, turning everything green gold and drowsy. For a moment you forget the weight of your blade, the layers of silence, the smell of blood in frozen dirt. You just breathe. Later, as he runs off, robe flapping stick in hand like a toy sword, he calls over his shoulder, "Do you think I'll be like you one day?" You don't answer immediately. You watch him disappear down the trail, hear his laughter echo between trees. Then you whisper to the empty grove, "No, I hope you're better." That evening, Okabe visits with tea. You haven't spoken since the southern swordsman. He pours quietly, sips, watches you. Then he says, "You didn't kill him." You nod. He waits. Finally you say, "He wasn't there to die." Okabe leans back. "And if he had been," you shrug, "then he'd be gone." He studies you a moment longer. Then almost gently, "You're changing." You smile slightly. "So is the snow." He chuckles at that. "You'll have to bathe more often," he says. You raise an eyebrow. "Only when the fight doesn't follow me home." He raises his cup in mock salute. And for a long while the two of you sit like that old friend's warm tea, quiet understanding. Outside, a branch drops its load of snow with a soft thump. Inside, you finally allow yourself to stretch out. Not in readiness, not in tension. Just in the stillness that comes when a blade is at rest. And a man knows it can stay that way if only for one night. Spring doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps into the world like ink into rice paper, slow spreading from the corners inward. The frost lingers in shadows, but the plum blossoms begin to open. The breeze smells different now, less smoke, more earth. The wind carries petals instead of snowflakes. You've stopped counting the days between duels, not because you've lost interest, but because you no longer measure time by the blade. The boy still visits. Not every day, but often enough that the moss by the stone remembers his shape. He's taller now. Or maybe it's just the way he stands. Shoulders squared, eyes steadier. He mimics your forms with less wobble. Still wrong in the details, but right in spirit. You never told him your name. He never asked. It's better that way. One morning he brings you a wooden sword he carved himself. It's uneven, slightly warped, but he's proud of it. And when he holds it out, you take it like it's a gift of gold. You train with it that day. No blade, no edge, just motion. Later you leave the practice clearing and return to the compound, and something's shifted in the air. Not fear anticipation, the kind that follows political tension when honor must be performed in the open. There's word of a visiting envoy, a formal demonstration, dozens of onlookers, silk and scrolls, courtiers and scribes, and your name has been chosen to represent the clan. You aren't surprised. You are never surprised anymore. You bow to your master when he delivers the news. He says only, "You will not fail." You do not answer. You don't need to. That evening you visit the bathhouse, not because you crave comfort, but because the next duel will be different. This one isn't survival. It's display. And in the way of old Japan, presentation is part of the kill. The water is warm. The attendants quiet. You wash without thought, without hesitation. The heat loosens your limbs, but not your guard. You leave your blade propped beside the tub, never out of reach. Your eyes remain half open the entire time. When you dress again, your robes are layered in the ceremonial way. Crisp lines, tied cords. The scent of cedar and clove clings to you, not because you chose it, but because it's expected. And expectations are just another weapon. The next morning, the courtyard is transformed. Banners hang like brushstrokes against the sky. A crowd gathers in neat rows, retainers, monks visiting nobles, children held quiet by watchful mothers. The envoy sits beneath a silk canopy fanned lazily by an attendant. He is all smiles and sleeves, an expert in the art of politeness, with a knife behind every word. Your opponent is not a stranger this time. He's one of your own, chosen for his grace, his style, his cleanness. You face each other in the ring, two versions of the same story. He bows. You bow lower. His hands are perfect grip, poised, blade gleaming. Yours is less polished, but more certain. When the signal is given, you move with no hesitation. The clash of swords is crisp like thunder rolled into one breath. The duel is swift, beautiful, the kind that poets admire and scribes turn into verse. Each strike speaks, each block responds. The air between you is charged with unspoken truths. You don't win by cutting him. You win by showing him where you would have. 3 times. Each one would have been fatal. But you pull your strikes short, let the crowd gasp. Let the envoy lean forward, smiling wider with every breath he doesn't take. When it ends, your blade is still clean, and yet everyone knows you've won. You bow. Your opponent bows lower. The crowd murmurs with polite appreciation, but your eyes never leave the envoy's. He nods once, then turns away. It's over. Later that day, as the banners are taken down and the whispers fade, you pass by the bathhouse again. This time you don't look away. You enter. You wash. But not to feel clean. To mark the difference. You are no longer the warrior who refused the bath out of fear of death. You are the warrior who chooses when to enter, when to emerge, and who no longer needs to signal anything to the gods. They know you now, and they nod when you pass. By now, your name is spoken differently in the compound. Not loudly, not with flourish, but with a certain care, like a blade being set down gently on a wooden stand. It isn't reverence. It isn't fear. It's the quiet recognition that you've crossed some invisible line, and once crossed, it can't be uncrossed. You are no longer the man who avoids the bath. You are the man who has earned the right to choose it. It begins to show in the way people move around you. Servants no longer ask if you want the bath drawn, they wait for you to say when. The junior samurai stop trying to catch your eye. They bow deeper, step aside faster. Even Okabe has shifted. He still brings you news, still shares tea, but he no longer offers advice, only observations. Your steps lighter, he says one afternoon, watching you descend the garden path. Like a man who's slept. You shrug. Like a man who's survived. He smiles, but says nothing. Word comes of an envoy returning soon, this time from the imperial court. Not for duels, not for displays, for negotiations. Your master is preparing the grounds, trimming trees, repainting calligraphy on the walls of the great hall. And for the first time, you're given a different task. Not to duel, but to guard. A place of honor, they say. A station of trust. You're to stand at the far end of the hall near the sliding screen doors, just beside the inner garden. Visible. Silent. A presence not a threat, but unmistakably prepared for one. You accept it with a bow. That evening, you go to the bathhouse. Not because you must, because you choose to meet the moment clean. The water is still hot, drawn with the same care, the same scent of pine steam curling along the ceiling beams. But it feels different now. You no longer see it as something to avoid or surrender to. It's just water. And you are just a man. A man who once kept death close like a second heartbeat, and now wears it like a shadow, always behind, but no longer leading. You stand at your post the next morning, robe's perfect hair, bound blade resting with effortless ease at your side. You watch as the delegation enters, smooth voices rustling silks, the scent of perfume trailing like smoke. They glance at you, some with curiosity, one with a flicker of recognition. You nod slightly, they keep walking. The talks are long. Hours pass in soft tones and ritual bows. You don't move. Your knees ache. Your back stiffens. But your breath stays steady. Outside, the cherry trees are finally beginning to bloom. Petals drift into the courtyard like snow from another season, one that no longer feels like it belongs to you. You blink slowly. The moment stretches, and then shouting, sharp, sudden. The tension in the room cracks like a bowstring. A guard draws a blade. A figure lunges from behind a curtain. You are already moving. You cross the floor in 3 silent steps. Your hand is on your hilt before most have turned. Your sword leaves its sheath with a whisper of inevitability and stops. 1 inch from the attacker's throat. He freezes. So does everyone else. You don't speak. You don't shout. You hold his gaze until the fury drains from it. Then with a flick, you lower the blade. 2 guards grab him. He doesn't resist. Your master speaks only a single word. Enough. And just like that, the moment breaks. You return to your post. The court watches you differently now. Later back in your quarters, the boy is waiting. Somehow he's gotten past the outer walls again, and he sits at your table like he belongs there. He has a scroll in his lap and excitement in his eyes. I saw it, he whispers. You don't pretend not to know what he means. You didn't even cut him. No, you could have. Yes. He leans forward. Why didn't you? You consider your answer carefully, then. Because I was clean. He furrows his brow. What do you mean? You pour tea into 2 cups. Push one toward him. I didn't bring death with me. I didn't need to use it to prove I had it. He stares at his cup, then at you. You're not what I thought a warrior was. You smile faintly. Neither was I when I started. He grins. And then in perfect silence, the 2 of you sit, as the scent of cherry blossoms drifts through the paper screen. You sleep well that night. Not because the world is safe, but because for the first time in years you are. The blossoms bloom in full by the end of the week. Pale pink petals cover the courtyard like a soft snowfall from a more forgiving season. They pile in the corners of stone steps and float in the still pond water, so delicate that even the koi swim around them rather than disturb their drift. The compound smells of spring, now fresh earthy, tinged with the faint perfume of rebirth. You begin to hear laughter again, genuine, not nervous. The junior warriors take longer walks between drills. They rest under the trees, arms behind their heads, staring up at the bloom-laced sky like boys again. Some of them even train with their masks off now. More open, more curious. You're not part of it. Not exactly. But they nod to you as you pass. And when one drops his sword mid-practice and flinches, you pick it up for him, hand it back without comment. He bows so low his forehead brushes the ground. You just keep walking. There's no challenge this week. No blade drawn. No death carried in your steps. And it almost feels wrong. Almost. Because something else has taken its place. Stillness. A kind of peace you hadn't expected to earn. You begin your mornings earlier than ever now, but not for training. You walk the perimeter. Not with urgency, but with quiet curiosity. You watch the sparrows dart between branches. You stand beneath the trees and let petals fall on your shoulders. You let the warmth of the rising sun touch your skin without flinching. Your blade stays sheathed. You polish it less, not out of neglect, but because it's not the sharpness that matters now. It's the presence of it, the memory. The boy visits less often now. You suspect he's started training somewhere formal, but every few days you'll find a small token left at your practice stone, a folded paper crane, a drawing of a sword, one time even a rice ball wrapped in bamboo leaf. You accept them all without comment. One morning you find him waiting again. He's taller now. He stands straighter. He bows with more grace. But his eyes are still wide with wonder. "Sensei," he says. The first time he's used that word. You don't correct him. He asks, "Why do you still carry your sword?" You look at the hilt beside your hip. Then back to him. "Because someone might need me." He frowns. "To fight?" "No," you say softly. "To stop." He nods slowly as if tasting that answer in his mouth. Then asks, "And if no one ever needs you again?" You look up at the sky. Watch a blossom fall through a shaft of sunlight. "Then I'll be glad." You both sit by the stone. He doesn't ask for a lesson. He just stays. That afternoon, your master sends word. He wishes to see you. You find him in the great hall, seated beside the open screens, watching the trees shed their petals like quiet prayers. He gestures for you to sit. "You've changed," he says. You nod. "So has the season." He studies you for a long moment. Then he says, "There's talk of moving you to the capital, a position of quiet protection. No duels, no public displays." You let the silence stretch. "Would I still carry a sword?" "Yes." You look out at the blossoms, then back at him. "Then I'm ready." He nods once, says nothing more. You return to your quarters, set your blade on its stand, not out of reach, just not in your hand. That evening you bathe, not because you need to, because the water is warm and the night is gentle, and for once you do not feel the need to stand guard while the steam rises. You sleep deeply that night, not because you've stopped being a warrior, but because you've stopped needing the world to remind you. Your departure is quiet, no fanfare, no procession, just a single scroll delivered to your door with a seal you recognize and an instruction you already expected. You pack lightly, one spare robe, your blade, a pouch of rice, a slip of folded paper, one of the boy's drawings. You don't even remember taking it, but there it is, creased from months of being forgotten inside your sleeve. As you tie your sandals and step into the early morning air, the compound feels almost shy. The cherry blossoms are beginning to fade, their petals scattered browning at the edges. A breeze stirs them into small drifts at your feet, and the world smells like memory. You don't seek out goodbyes. That isn't your way. But Okabe is waiting by the gate. He's already been up, already had tea, already prepared whatever task will fill the space you're about to leave behind. He doesn't bow. He just crosses his arms and watches you for a moment. Then you'll be missed. You nod. So will the quiet. He smirks. There's always quiet if you ignore enough people. You allow yourself the smallest laugh. He holds out a wrapped bundle. Dried persimmons. You always forget to eat. You take them. Not because you're hungry, but because you know it's his way of placing armor around your departure. He adds, "They'll probably dress you in fine robes up there. Silk, color." You glance down at your plain travel attire. "They can dress me however they like," you say, "but my blade will still be mine." He nods, and for a second you see it, the memory of all the fights neither of you ever talked about. All the nights you stood watch while the other slept. All the words left unsaid because between warriors silence often speaks loudest. You bow. He bows lower. Then you leave. The road to the capital winds through forests and over rivers that run swift with thaw. Villages pass in a blur. Children wave. Dogs bark and chase for a few paces before turning back. You travel light, move faster than most expect. You eat simply, sleep under trees. You think at first you'll be restless without the daily rituals of the compound. But you find a new rhythm, one of observation, not reaction. The capital appears like a mirage, hazy on the horizon, then rising clearer with every step. Tile rooftops, temple bells, the soft hum of too many conversations happening at once. Your new post is in the southern quarter near the Poets District. Not a palace, not a fortress, just a long house with thick doors and paper walls surrounded by gardens that grow wild and thick. You are shown your quarters, sparse, clean, a view of the plum trees. You are given your task protection, but not of a person, of an idea. There are scrolls in this house that are said to contain dangerous thoughts. Writings from banned thinkers, poems that question structure, philosophies that bend hierarchy. Your job is not to destroy them, just to guard them, to keep those who would silence too quickly from acting too swiftly. It feels strange at first, to protect words instead of flesh, but you begin to see the shape of it. The quiet blade of meaning, the weight of truth wrapped in metaphor. You spend hours reading not because it's required, but because it fills the same space in you that dueling once did. Each scroll is its own confrontation, each phrase a slice. You do not duel anymore, but you still stand ready. Sometimes wandering monks visit, sometimes spies. Once even a former rival, now stooped with age and walking with a carved stick. He does not recognize you, but you remember his stance, the way he used to favor his left leg when circling. You pour him tea without a word. He sips it slowly, then says, "There's a calm here, like someone dangerous watches kindly." You don't answer, because you know what he means. You've become the shadow behind the paper wall, the unsheathed possibility. And in this new life, that's enough. That night you bathe, not to wash away blood, not to shake off death, but because it's spring and the air smells of blossoms and the bathhouse here is open to the sky. You sink into the warmth and close your eyes, and for the first time in years, your blade remains in the other room. Because you trust the silence now, because the war inside you has finally lowered its sword. The months pass like wind over tall grass, quiet, constant, and always changing the landscape without asking permission. You settle into your life at the capital not by effort, but by absence. You do not try to belong. You do not try to stand out. You simply are, and over time people adjust around that. You become the man in the southern quarter who watches over ideas too dangerous to burn. The man who walks the garden paths at dawn. The man who doesn't speak unless it matters. They begin calling you sensei behind closed doors. You let them. You teach now and then. Not sword work, not really, but presence. A certain stillness. The way to listen more deeply than you speak. The way to walk without turning stones. One day, a young scribe brings you a scroll and asks, "Is it true you used to refuse to bathe before battle?" You raise an eyebrow. Why? Because the boy says they say it made you unbeatable. You laugh not out loud, but with your eyes. It made me ready. He frowns. Isn't that the same? No, you reply. Readiness accepts death. Invincibility denies it. He looks at you a long time, then bows and leaves. That evening you light incense in your quarters. The scent is different here, drier, more bitter, but it fills the room just the same. You write down thoughts now, not for anyone, just for yourself. Small phrases, quiet truths, things you would have missed years ago when your hands never stopped gripping the hilt. One day, as you're sweeping fallen leaves from the stone walkway, a letter arrives. No seal, no signature, just folded paper. Inside, a single ink drawing a child with a sword too large for him standing in a forest, clearing beneath a crooked pine. You stare at it for a long time. Then for the first time in a long time you cry. Not out of sadness, out of recognition. Someone remembers. Someone still carries the silence you gave them. That night you polish your sword not because it needs it, but because your hands want to remember. You dress in your old robe. You walk to the edge of the compound where the lanterns barely reach, and you practice one final kata beneath the blooming plum tree. Your movements are slower now, but cleaner. Fewer flourishes, no waste. Only breath and motion and memory. You bow to the tree when you finish, not to the gods, not to the sword, to yourself. You return to your room and leave the blade on its stand, not in readiness, in peace. That night you dream not of duels, not of death, but of warm water, open skies, and a bathhouse without walls. And the gods, they do not come for you, because they see you now not as a man who runs from death, but as one who walked beside it long enough to know its name and let it keep walking. So now your eyes are heavier. You've walked a long way tonight, through snow-laced dueling rings, through steam-filled silence, through gardens where footsteps carry the weight of old ghosts. You've carried blades that never missed, watched men vanish from your edge, and lived with that truth like a second heartbeat. But here now you're not the warrior anymore. You're the stillness that remains after. Your breath is slower, your hands softer. The sword is clean but unused, and your body for once has nothing to flinch from. You can feel the weight sliding off you now, not armor, not robes, but the old instincts that used to keep you upright in your sleep. They're easing, softening, releasing. There's no duel waiting in the morning, no challenge at the gate, just tea. Perhaps a warm breeze, maybe a folded paper crane on your doorstep again, if you're lucky. You've earned the bath, you've earned the quiet, and more than anything, you've earned the dream. So go ahead, sink into the stillness. Let the blossoms fall where they may, and rest.